Informative, precise, slightly cynical, deeply knowledgeable. You imagine having $22 million to spend on making the city of Kitchener a better place to live? It's a great thing to imagine, isn't it? Okay, I'm Cy Williams, and this is TriCity Sessions. Look at your screen. Look at this image. If you're walking down the street in Kitchener, Ontario, specifically around Lancaster Street West, you are going to trip over a piece of municipal reality stuck in the grass. And it's a sign, standard issue, white background, green borders, some official logo stamped on the top to make everybody feel like their tax dollars are shaking hands with destiny. It's right here. And if you pull out your phone and take a video of it like we did here, you'll hear the ambient noise of a city moving past it. Cars driving by, a blue sky
$22
overhead,
million? What the fuck?
in the background. But look closer at what that sign actually says. Lancaster Street West reconstruction. $22.009 million. $22 million. Let that number sit in your teeth for a second. When you see a sign like that, does your brain do a double take? You can hear it in my audio of this video.
$22 million? What the fuck?
That raw and immediate reaction. $22 million? What the fuck? And honestly, that is the only logical response a sane human being can have when they see 8 figures attached to a stretch of local asphalt. Because to the average person living paycheck to paycheck, $22 million isn't just money. It becomes an abstract concept. It's a lottery win. It's a lifetime of security for you and your family. It's generational wealth. But in the world of municipal engineering, $22 million is just the price of admission to tear up a road. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that sign. We're going to talk about what that $22 million actually buys when it gets buried under the dirt. But more importantly, we are going to look at the alternative reality. We are going to play a game of civic imagination. If you had $22 million in a briefcase right now, and your only job was to inject it directly into the bloodstream of Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, to make it a more Kitchener, even just Kitchener, to make it a more vibrant, soulful, deeply livable city, would you spend it on the dirt under Lancaster Street, or would you build something new, something else? Welcome to the counterculture breakdown of municipal priority. Let's dive in. Section 2, the anatomy of a $22 million hole. Before we start rewriting the future of Kitchener, let's give the engineers their due. Let's talk about why the region of Waterloo is dropping $22 million large on Lancaster Street West, from Wellington all the way up to Bridgeport Road. Because on the surface, when you drive down Lancaster, you just see orange barrels. You see a bit of broken pavement, some gravel, some guys in high visibility vests. Sometimes they're drinking coffee, but mostly they're operating heavy machinery. And you think to yourself, I could hire a guy with a steamroller to patch this up for 50 grand. Where is the rest of the money going? And here is the truth, true believers. The most expensive parts of a city are the parts you never see until they stop working. This isn't a repaving job. This is a total, according to the facts, top to bottom subterranean organ transplant. First, they're ripping out the ancient infrastructure beneath the pavement. We're talking about water mains that have been sitting under the frost line for probably decades, slowly corroding. We're talking about sanitary sewers handling the collective waste of a growing population, and storm sewers designed for a climate era that just doesn't exist anymore. When you replace an underground water main in an active urban corridor, you aren't just digging a hole. You are navigating a spiderweb of existing gas lines, fiber optic cables, old brick structures, and unpredictable soil conditions. You have to bypass active systems so people can still turn on their taps, flush their toilets while you work. And that's where the millions start evaporating into the dirt. Engineering fees, heavy equipment for work, thousands of tons of structural aggregate, and high-grade utility piping. But then look at what happens when they finally climb out of the hole and get back to the surface. To their credit, this project isn't just about cars. They are installing active transportation infrastructure. They are building dedicated, separated boulevard cycle tracks on both sides of Lancaster. They are tearing up broken sidewalks and pouring continuous, accessible concrete paths. They are redesigning major intersections like the bottleneck at Union Street, and then in order to upgrade traffic signals and improve sightlines and install modern transit pads for the Grand River Transit buses. So 6 months from now, by the time this wraps up, well, maybe over the next couple of years when this wraps up, it will look like a modern, functional, beautifully engineered piece of 21st century civic design. They say it's necessary work. If you don't fix the sewers, the city literally stops functioning. Infrastructure is the baseline of civilization. That's what I've been told. But here's the big gonzo question. Here is the thought experiment that keeps me up at night. Infrastructure certainly keeps us alive, but does it make us live? Does a pristine stretch of asphalt give a city like Kitchener its soul? Does a new storm sewer make a kid want to stay in Kitchener when they grow up? Does a beautifully concrete poured bus pad solve the profound isolation that exists, the creative starvation, or the economic anxiety humming through our neighborhoods right now? No, it doesn't. So let's take that $22 million back out of the ground. Let's pretend the pipes are fine for another decade and that the briefcase is sitting on my desk. How would I spend it to transform Kitchener from a functional place to live into a city that burns with creative fire? What could I do? So, I think right out of the gate, we start with culture. We start with the arts. We start with the counterculture spirit that defines the true history of this region. Kitchener has always had a gritty, industrial, beautiful edge to it. It's a city built on manufacturing, on making things with your hands, on hard work and raw determination. But as the tech boom swept through the region over the last 20 years, a lot of that raw, independent, creative space got polished away. Glass towers went up. Rents skyrocketed. And when the rent skyrockets, the first people to get pushed to the margins all are the artists, the musicians, the weirdos, the independent media creators, the very people who give this city a flavor, its identity, its pulse. And if you don't give the counterculture a place to stand, your city becomes an expensive, sanitized dormitory for commuters. So out of our $22 million briefcase, we are pulling out $6 million right now to build a permanent, unshakable cultural anchor in the city of Kitchener. $4 million will go directly into brick and mortar. We aren't building a sleek corporate arts center with glass facades and a board of directors who all wear tailored suits and dresses. We are buying an old, vacant industrial warehouse in the heart of the city, something with weathered bricks, massive windows, and historical weight. We are going to retrofit it into a massive, subsidized, multidisciplinary creative hub. And inside of this building, we are going to set up professional-grade, soundproofed recording booths. We're going to install high-end video editing bays and podcast studios with state-of-the-art gear. We're going to set up printmaking spaces, working shops, and massive open-concept visual art studios. And here's the kicker. Ready for this? The rent for local creators is going to be subsidized to the absolute floor. So if you're a 19-year-old kid with a camera and a vision, or a seasoned visual artist working on a massive installation project, you don't get priced out of your own city. You have a key to a building where you can create, collaborate, and experiment 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It becomes a sanctuary for independent media, a breeding ground for new ideas, and a physical space where the gonzo spirit can actually take root and thrive. The remaining $2 million, well, we take it out into the streets. We don't buy boring, abstract corporate sculptures that nobody really understands. We fund a massive, multi-year mural and public street art initiative. We hire local and international street artists to turn every blank gray concrete wall, every alleyway, and every brick facade in this city into an expansive living canvas. We couple that with a grassroots live performance fund, and if you want to host an independent DIY music festival in a parking lot or a pop-up theater production in a local park, you don't have to jump through 10 miles of bureaucratic red tape and pay thousands of dollars in city permits. This fund covers the insurance, pays the artist to keep a living wage, and keeps the events completely free for the public. And suddenly, the city just doesn't feel cleaner. Feels alive. You walk down the street and you can feel the creative friction. You can hear music coming from around the corner. You see art that makes you think, makes you stop, and makes you feel connected to the person standing next to you. That is what $6 million buys when you invest in people instead of pavement. But look, we can't talk about art and we can't talk about culture if we aren't willing to talk about the most vulnerable people sleeping on our streets. Livability is an absolute joke if it only applies to people who can afford a $500,000 condo. You cannot look at a sign boasting a $22 million road project while people are pitching tents in public parks. They're doing this because they have nowhere else to go. And that, my friends, is a systemic failure of perspective. A truly great city is measured by how it treats the people at the very bottom of the economic ladder. So we take the largest slice of our budget,
$6 million, and we dedicate it entirely to
impact Dignity First housing solutions. Now, the Dignity First modular village is where we start. And we do that by allocating $4 million to build a fully serviced, transitional, tiny home and modular housing community. This isn't about throwing up cheap shelters and walking away. This is about architectural dignity. We partner with local nonprofits to build compact, highly insulated, beautiful microhomes. Each unit has its own bathroom, its own kitchenette, and its own front door that locks. And in the center of this village, we build a community hub building that houses full-time on-site support staff, mental health professionals, addiction counselors, employment specialists, community elders. We give people a stable, warm, safe environment to ground themselves in without the fear of being swept away by police or security guards. When you give someone a door they can lock, you give them their humanity back. From that foundation of stability, they can actually begin to heal, to rebuild, and to find their footing once again. Now, the other $4 million would go into a defensive economic weapon of sorts, a community land trust. Now, the housing market right now is predatory. Real estate investment trusts and corporate landlords are buying up older, affordable, low-rise apartment buildings across Kitchener. They're doing cosmetic renovations and evicting the tenants, then doubling the rent. We take $4 million out of our 22, and we use that as a capital reserve to buy those exact buildings before the speculators can get their hands on them. We take those properties off the speculative market entirely, and we place them into the hands of a community-governed trust. What's their mission? Well, the trust's mission would be to keep them permanently affordable. No rent-evictions, no predatory rent hikes. We fund deep energy retrofits to lower utility costs, fix the roofs, maintain the property with care, and keep families, seniors, and working-class people securely housed in neighborhoods they've lived in for decades. $8 million doesn't completely erase the housing crisis in Kitchener, but it draws a line in the sand. It creates an immediate safety net. It says that in Kitchener, your right to exist and be safe matters more than a corporate margin or a flawless piece of pavement. What else? What else would I do with that money? Now, let's look at the physical environment of the city. As Kitchener grows, as density increases, as more infill development happens, we are losing our connection to the natural world. Concrete absorbs heat, high-rises block the sun. If we want a city that feels healthy, we need to inject a radical dose of nature directly into the urban core. We need to rethink how parks and green spaces function.
You take $2 million
out of that $22 million, and we dedicate it to environmental resilience and community self-reliance. Can you imagine urban green arterial?
$2 million goes towards
rewriting the rules of urban transit And instead of just painting a white line on the side of a busy road and calling it a bike lane, we build a dedicated network of heavily landscaped, tree-lined green arterials. And these would be completely separated micro park corridors cutting through the city. They are designed and should be designed exclusively for pedestrians, cyclists, scooters, and parents pushing strollers. They are insulated from vehicle traffic by deep rain gardens, native wildflower plantings, and massively beautiful canopy trees. Imagine walking from your neighborhood to downtown Kitchener without ever having to share space with a 2-ton truck or breathe in exhaust fumes. These pathways wouldn't just be a way to get from point A to point B. They would become a therapeutic escape. They can lower the urban heat island effect, manage stormwater naturally, and completely change the psychological experience of moving through Kitchener. Oh, wouldn't that be amazing? Funny what a little bit of money can do, eh? The remaining $2 million will go towards food sovereignty and community resilience. We build a network of neighborhood-managed, year-round, geodesic community greenhouses and edible food forests and public parks across the city. These aren't just patches of grass with a few garden beds. No, no, no. These are high-yield, indoor-outdoor community agriculture hubs. In the middle of January, when everything outside is frozen solid, these solar-powered greenhouses are warm, green, and growing fresh greens, tomatoes, herbs. Local residents can run them. Seniors can teach young kids how to plant seeds. Families can come together to learn the art of home preserves, how to pickle carrots, garlic, red onions, using simple traditional methods. It becomes a space that fights food insecurity. It reduces social isolation, and it teaches people how to rely on one another once again. Not heartwarming. I find that to be incredibly heartwarming. So, that leaves us with
$2 million.
a lot of money. It was $19 million I just spent. Now we have the final piece of the puzzle. And for this last chunk of money, we are going to do something that municipal governments almost never do. We are going to trust in the people. We aren't going to hire high-priced consultants from Toronto to tell us what Kitchener needs. No, no, no. We aren't going to hold 3-hour public meetings at City Hall at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday when nobody with a job can actually attend. No, no, no. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to establish a $3 million community trust called the Kitchener Imagination Fund. Oh, that has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? This fund belongs entirely to the neighborhoods of Kitchener. It is split up across the city, and the rules are incredibly simple. Any citizen, any neighborhood association, any small business collective can directly pitch an idea for a hyper-local project that makes their immediate block a better place to live in. No 50-page grant applications justifying everything else and their dog. No bureaucratic gatekeeping. Do you want to turn a vacant gravel lot into an outdoor neighborhood cinema? Do you want to build a public tool-sharing library in your local park? Do you want to construct a massive wood-fired pizza oven in a community space so that your street, your neighborhood can host weekly pizza block parties? Do you want to fund an independent zine distribution network for local youth? Do you want to start a podcast? The community pitches the ideas. The community votes on the ideas, and the money then gets deployed instantly in the form of micro grants, ranging from $5,000 to $25,000. What happens when you do that? Well, you unlock the latent genius of Kitchener citizens. You give people a sense of ownership over their streets. You transition people from passive consumers into a city of active builders who build community. So let's bring it all back to that sign in the grass on Lancaster Street. $22 million. On one hand, you can spend it to replace aging pipes and lay down some fresh old asphalt. Absolutely. And let's be honest, when this project wraps up in 2027 or 2028, it will be a perfectly fine, functional piece of engineering. We will drive our cars over it smoothly, and we won't think about it again until the next pot makes us jump. But on the other hand, look at what that same $22 million could build if we had the courage to change our priorities. A permanent creative warehouse for artists and creators. Full-scale public art across every bare wall. A dignity-first village for our unhoused neighbors. Protected apartment buildings, keeping families safe from predatory landlords. Landscaped green pathways cutting through our concrete spaces, connecting our communities. Year-round greenhouses providing fresh food. And a neighborhood fund that lets people build their own future. Infrastructure keeps a city running, for sure. But art, culture, dignity, and community would make a city worth running for. The next time you pass a sign, a construction sign, and it has an astronomical price tag on it, don't just look at the number. Look at the choice it represents. Ask yourself, are we building a system of pipes or are we building a home? I'm leaving that question with you. This is the $22 million illusion. I'm Cy Williams, and this is TriCity Sessions, the foundation of human dignity.